Good morning and welcome to Grand Valley State University's Alumni Virtual Town Hall. My name is Jesse Bernal and I'm the Vice President for Inclusion, Equity, and Presidential Initiatives at GVSU, and I'll be helping to facilitate our time together. Today's town hall is one of 22 planned virtual town halls President Mantella is hosting for all our university and campus partners since we moved to remote work and learning back in March. We are engaging over 3,600 faculty, staff, current students, future Lakers, their families, business and nonprofit leaders, community partners, and now you, our distinguished alumni. Our time today is part of our commitment to providing ongoing and regular communication to the entire community. So thank you all for joining us for your continued support and engagement. As you can imagine, we received hundreds of questions during the registration process, and we'll be answering as many as we can. We'll begin with some opening comments from President Mantella and other administrative leaders at Grand Valley. For those questions we do not get to, or those that were specific to individual circumstances, we will provide individual responses and a group follow-up email to all those who have registered for this town hall. This session is being recorded and a recording of it will be provided in that follow-up email as well. To orient you to Zoom a bit, at the bottom of your window, you will see two options. There's a Q&A box where you are encouraged to ask additional questions throughout our time together. There's also an open chat box where you can submit comments, ask for clarification, or provide additional information to panelists. We'll also be providing a lot of links and information in that chat box as we proceed with today's town hall, so I encourage you to check out all of that as you are able. We'll be responding to some questions live and others through typed responses that everyone will have access to in both of these places. We'll get to as many as we can during our brief time together, and we'll also stay after the 1-hour town hall to answer any additional questions. I'd like to now introduce our university leadership. Vice President for Enrollment Development, Lynn Blue, who also goes by Chick. Tom Butcher, our Vice President and General Counsel. Karen Loth, our Vice President for University Development. Matt McLogan, our Vice President for University Relations and Secretary to the Board of Trustees. Dr. Greg Saniel, our Vice President for Finance and Administration and Treasurer to the Board of Trustees. Dr. Suzanne Bennett, Associate Vice President for Academic Affairs, also representing the Provost and Executive Vice President for Academic and Student Affairs. Michelle Rhodes, our Associate Vice President for Financial Aid. Chris Barbie, the Director of Alumni Relations. And Troy Farley, Director of Career Services. I'm now proud to introduce the university's president, Dr. Philomena Mantella.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being with us today. Thank you, Jesse, for your hosting of each of these sessions and facilitating the dialogue. It truly is a pleasure to be with our alumni from over a dozen states, and we're excited to have you as a part of this conversation. As we start the conversation, I will tell you right up front that we don't have all the information we would like to know in order to do our planning. I think we're all living at very challenging and uncertain times, but we have felt that it's important to share what we do know, to talk about the way we're making decisions, and to let you know how we're thinking about the future of the university and the considerations that the senior team is taking on each and every day. The video that opened up this particular town hall today, and many of our town halls, remind me in a deep and profound way how the Laker community comes together, not only in good times, but in challenging times. And we all miss your energy on our campus, and along with our students and our faculty and staff. But we are proud of the responsibility that you're all carrying to help us keep our community safe, to help us bend the curve, flatten the curve, so that we can get back to the kind of connections individually as well as digitally that we all embrace. I also want to thank those alumni who have, and there are numerous alumni that are serving as frontline and essential workers and serving in our healthcare areas and public safety. So thanks to each of you for helping us and keeping us all safe, and for the heroic efforts that have been displayed over the past 3 months. I'd also like to acknowledge the many volunteer efforts that alumni have joined. And many of these have grown organically, like Nate Gillespie, who's put together a coronavirus civilian corps supporting small businesses, or Sarah Hoffman, who has returned from the LPGA to work on the front line. At Grand Valley, we have also announced networks of support and have several hundred of our alumni who have volunteered from everything from pen pal projects to those that are isolated in assisted living facilities, to mask making, to supporting our vulnerable populations, and to enabling us to keep our commitment around Project Outreach, which was a commitment to reach out to every one of our 25,000 students individually, because coronavirus has impacted us all in a different way. We all have circumstances we're managing, whether they're our own health circumstances, loneliness, family that are away, or that they have hit us in economic ways or in the stability of our work life. So thank you for allowing us to keep that commitment. We have reached out to every one of our students, and we're now doing so with our admitted students, and it makes Grand Valley who we are. So again, I'm deeply grateful to all the alumni who have extended our reach at Grand Valley. So let me start with some comments on how we're leading during this period of time, which might be the most important framework for you to understand, because it's how we're going to think about the decisions ahead as well as the decisions we've made. First of all, we have community safety at the forefront of our mind, both our university community and our broader communities, as we think about how we keep learning happening. We are very student-centered university, as you well know. Hopefully you experience us just that way in terms of the relationships you've had with faculty and staff here and who continue to support you as alums. We believe that protecting the continuity of learning is equally as important. And so we want and need people to continue on their learning journey. I know there's been a lot of conversation about whether or not people should stop and wait. And Grand Valley's position on that is we have the digital medium that allow people to keep moving. We have choices that individuals can make around the face-to-face offerings we'll have ahead, and I'm going to talk about that a little more, as well as online offerings that will continue. And this state and this nation needs the talent that comes out of Grand Valley, particularly in this period of rebuilding that we're going to be in. So we think it's really important to keep learning happening, and that's very much a part of our considerations and the values that guide us. We also have an unwavering commitment to be stronger on the other side of the coronavirus pandemic. We think that the university has gone through periods of challenge, gone through enormous change in its brief 60-year life. And this is a period, yes, unprecedented, but we are holding the bar up for ourselves to be stronger on the other side of us, for the same reasons that I said individuals need to keep learning, and that is that our state and our nation will need us, our community will need us in the rebuilding process. I want to talk, probably the most common question, I think the most popular question is, what decisions have we made around learning going forward? And I would like to talk a little bit about that. And then what is our financial health to be able to ride through a disruption like that, where I'll ask our CFO to join me in talking about that. And then I would like to talk a little bit about how we're thinking about the opportunities ahead coming out of coronavirus. As I said, we need to be stronger. and what's guiding us in terms of some of our thinking going forward. And then we'll open it up for questions. So briefly, we've made some decisions around summer. Spring summer is fully online at this point in time. There's been a lot of conversations around the impact on enrollment overall at universities. And I will tell you that we have entered the spring summer terms with a higher than last year enrollment. Part of that is that in the summer, students many times wanted to pick up online opportunities, and we've been able to make our whole portfolio available to them over the course of this year. And so we are doing well with our summer activities. Our full set of services are online for our students, our faculty, our staff, and our alumni community. And you see Troy Farley here, who I know for many, career services is a very important part of our offerings to our alumni. So all of that is completely available and online. We are restricting events on our campus, and we're very mindful of reducing density. So right now, during this period of everything online, we have only our essential workforce and a very small number of students living on our campus. But we are anticipating a 6-week march up to face-to-face learning in the fall. And so in the fall, both honoring public health guidelines and with the approvals necessary across the state, the stay-at-home order lifted, we are planning a face-to-face experience. We are doing a number of things to reduce the density on our campus in terms of the way that we handle the schedule, the availability of hybrid and flipped learning, the opportunities to reduce density in our residence halls, and we can come back to many of those things perhaps in the Q&A. And we're building a culture of responsibility. As I said at the onset, that's pretty easy in Laker Nation because Lakers take to the responsibility to others as a part of who they are. So we think that our students who have been very responsible in the way they have come forward with their economic needs around hardship will take to public health guidelines quite well and will support keeping others safe. But we will be working hard over the summer on building that culture of responsibility. I'm going to pause there a moment on our plans, which I've laid out to date, and turn to Greg Saniel, who will give us an update on the financial health of the university.
Thank you, President Mantella. The financial impact to Grand Valley State from COVID-19 can really be thought of in two separate and distinct phases. The first part is the initial hit that we took as we shifted from a full face-to-face environment to all online, and the impact of the housing, dining, and parking refunds that we gave to our students right away. We didn't hesitate. We prorated to a daily rate and got the money back in our students' pockets as quickly as we could. That impact to the, and then there's some smaller associated costs with the shift to all online. That impact to the university right now sits at about $13 million. And the university is well positioned to absorb that. We're in a strong financial shape. We had a large contingency that was already baked into the budget, so that was available to us. And we have some reserves that we've been able to use. So with that initial impact of COVID-19 on the university was something we were very able to withstand. And you saw that with our actions, our commitment to our employees. We did not furlough anybody. We did not reduce anybody's hours. We remain open and serving, providing the service all across the university. All of our functions are up and running, just in a remote environment. The second phase of the impact of COVID-19 is next year, and how will that impact our enrollment? And what we have done is we've created as much decision space as possible for us as we plan to budget for the next year. A lot of uncertainty with enrollment, but all of our indicators are strong. Grand Valley has for years bucked the trend in Michigan with the demographics. We've always come out ahead of those demographics, and we expect to do the same in the fall. We're working hard to use our best indicators to develop our budget for the next year, and we will get that approved by our Board of Trustees in late June as we move into July. And then, of course, we'll provide ourselves with the opportunity to make any kind of adjustment we need once we actually know those final fall enrollment numbers. Yeah, we have good confidence in our enrollment. The biggest uncertainty for us really right now is our state appropriation. There, as you've seen in the news, tax revenues are down and things like that. So that's really what we need to be ready for and plan for, is a reduction to our state appropriation. Again, we're confident with the decision space that we've created for ourselves and the strong financial position of the university that we'll be able to weather this storm.
Thank you, Greg. I would just want to add to that a couple of points. We have, over the course of this past month, released a number of cost containment measures to preserve the decision space that Greg talks about, and to continue to work hard on building our community. I totally agree. Grand Valley has bucked the trend of the demographic decline over the decade. And when we think about a university and what's on people's mind around sending their son or daughter off to school, much of what's on their mind is it a community of care? Will that university know my students' individual circumstances? Will they respond to them? Will I be able to flex in and out of the modality of education, online or face-to-face, if I need to? And we do feel we're in very good position. That's a part of our DNA. You know, we teach in small classes. Our average class size is 26. Only 1% of our 4,400 sections are above 100 students. So teaching in small groups and even smaller groups with social distancing will give us, is very much akin to who we are and how we lead through our pedagogy and learning. And so we do think that Grand Valley will have a place for many people as they consider what their college choices are. But as Greg said, our enrollment is vulnerable. It's strong but vulnerable because the sands are shifting out there in terms of public policy and what people are expecting and what communities can or will be required to do. There'll also be increased costs around COVID-19 for the university to absorb, whether it's PPE or adjustments to facilities or teaching in smaller classes. So we are fortunate to our predecessors and many of the people who have been with us over a number of years to have the kinds of reserves and sound financial condition to not have to make quick decisions just to stay liquid. But we do have challenges that we're addressing, but we can address those challenges knowing that we can double down on the kind of Grand Valley education that you experience for future Lakers. So with that, Jesse, let's open it up for questions.
So several questions that we received during the registration process had to do with the future of virtual and online learning for Grand Valley, just in general, where many institutions are moving into that space. So a question, what do you see as the future, even if we were to return to on-campus learning and work, which we're planning for, what do you see as the future for virtual learning and online learning for Grand Valley? And how do you see students adapting to that as sort of a new norm part of their schedule moving forward?
Great. I'll ask Suzanne to begin to talk about the different ways in which we're approaching the learning model, and then I'll add in afterwards. Suzanne?
Okay, well, for the fall, we are looking at a combination where there will be some online as well as the face-to-face, so that people will have a choice. And going forward, there are a lot of classes where maybe faculty had been a little tentative about trying it online, and now that they've seen that this actually can be a good option. So I believe going forward, we will have maybe more opportunities online than we had in the past, but we will still have the face-to-face as well. Some combinations work very well in terms of doing it both ways. In some situations, the online will be a really opportunity, picking up a class or two, maybe at times when a student can't be on campus. So I think that actually what will end up is even more choices for our students, more opportunity to have their learning options the way that they were really hoping for. I think we're trying out a lot of new ways to teach online and remotely, and as we explore these things, we learn some things we didn't know before about opportunities that are out there, ways that we can really enhance the offerings that we have for our students.
I mean, one thing that I would add is I think that one of the lessons learned in the COVID-19 is how precious our face-to-face time is. And so I think as the faculty are planning for their courses and the deans are working with the faculty, they're all thinking about, for the hours we have face-to-face in these smaller sections that we're planning, how do we make those the most robust, interactive times, the most experiential times? And so again, I think that Suzanne is absolutely right. We're trying to use the best of online learning and the best of face-to-face learning.
Great, thank you, President Mantella. So we have a question from somebody that's asking this live. Curious about the steps that are being provided to accommodate virtual learning classes for both students and professors, especially for professors who haven't taught in this modality before.
Suzanne, why don't you begin?
Sure, I'd love to. Thank you. We have been doing a lot in terms of for the faculty. I believe that the Pew Teaching and Learning Center is something that most faculty were already fairly familiar with and had done some of their workshops and other things to learn about various things. They also, in coordination with, we have an online education council. We have various types of training that's been out there for faculty if they were going to go through online and start teaching online or remote classes. So what we have done is provide various ways that faculty can do this now instead of the normal track that took a while, a few different classes basically that faculty would take. In order to be qualified, you had to have your name on a list that you were a qualified faculty member to be going and teaching in the online. They still have to become qualified, but the routes for getting there, we've offered a lot more opportunities. We also have various workshops. We have a faculty who have been just teaching stars, and we do know who those people are, in online classes, mentoring some of their faculty who are newer to online teaching. We have a lot of communication. We put together a list. I was aware because I received some of the letters where students have a question or concern. We made a list of ways we could maybe do things better, things faculty could think about in order to better enhance the student experience in the future. We've made that something available to all faculty that's been addressed in workshops for faculty. So taking a lot of steps to help faculty, and on the flip side, we have put together workshops. We had online workshops before the spring term started. That was how to make the most of your online learning experience for students. We ran that a couple of times. I believe over 50 students participated in that. And we've done a variety of other things in terms of how do you schedule your life as a student trying to study at home so that you put in that time for studying and preparing to do well in your classes. We do have student success coaches available to do one-on-one coaching remotely if needed. So we've tried to cover the bases, so to speak.
Great, thank you. I also want to acknowledge that the chat function is not working right now. And so I previously said we'd be providing lots of links to information, and we're not able to activate that during the live session. So I want to guarantee you that we will follow up with an email that provides a lot additional information on all of these questions and other questions. So just be prepared to look out for that email as well. But you are encouraged to use the Q&A box to ask any additional questions, and we'll be responding to some individuals in that way as well. President Mantella, some curious, we're talking about sort of online digital education. What this pandemic has realized across the country are some disparities, particularly around the digital divide and individuals who may not have access to computers or reliable internet service. How is the university supporting students who are in these ways? And then more broadly, how is the university supporting individuals who may be facing hardship or now or in the future?
Yeah, thank you for that question. It's something that's very near and dear to our hearts. And I would say that as we went remote, one of the very big considerations for us was being sure that students had access to digital devices and service. for connectivity. And we did distribute a great number of devices to students and arrange connectivity. We did have some free connectivity by the providers that were out there early on in this, but we continue to do that as necessary. Our university has called for hardship funds, thanks to Karen Loth and her team, and we have worked very hard not only to pull those dollars together. The senior team this week all made the decision together to put a % of their salary into hardship funds so that we have access. We can provide the kind of access that's necessary for people not to have learning gaps. We also have been working very hard with the Provost's office on 2 initiatives. One is really a digital competency initiative to take all of what Suzanne just described that was done for our faculty, training, online training, unbundled components so that people who teach online who are at one level can get to the next level, to put all of that online in a space and make it available to our K-12 partners. And so we have done that as well. The charter schools have been extremely active, the charter school office, in terms of helping the K through 12, particularly the areas where vulnerable populations are, have opportunities to keep going with their learning. And most recently, we're announcing what we're calling a math advantage. And we're going to make the initial math course at college available in a different format that is both online, but has 2 other components wrapped around it. It has a learning communities component and the success coaching that Suzanne referenced. The first math class in college is many times that we like to call it the gateway class, that helps students sort of be ready for college work and rhythm. And many times is the success in that class relates to success in terms of being retained and graduating from college. So we're very concerned that students get what they need and get a little bit of a different opportunity in the mathematics area. That too will be available broadly, not just available to Grand Valley students, because these are all a part of our commitment to our community and the things we're facing, particularly at the K-12 level.
Great, thank you. And a follow-up question, President Mantella, from Kelly, one of our alumni. I think you'll appreciate this question. She's appreciating the move to hiring a chief digital officer, given where we know our online and digital education is in our future and some of the needs for technology and higher education across the board. She's curious about a role that alumni may play in supporting the needs around technology and the digital infrastructure for the university, particularly if they have connections with private sector businesses, or whether or not alumni giving might be helpful in this area.
Yes, thank you again for that question. That's so wonderful. Well, let me first of all say, I start with the fact that we do have heroes among us, and some of those are our IT team that kept this institution up and running and have just done incredible work 24/7 to respond to the questions that students have and faculty have as they enter the new medium. So that's been amazing, and I really want to acknowledge that team for their work and effort. That said, we've seen an experience in which learning is the whole infrastructure we think about around our campuses went to a part of our institution that's small but mighty. So we need to build out our digital capacity, not just for this COVID experience, because of the things that will change from this COVID experience. And we are proceeding with a leadership position, a chief digital officer. We would love, and we'll think about what we can put in the chat in an organized way, the follow-up email, in an organized way to collect, to know how you can help us with our digital journey. There is help we need in platforms, there's help that we need in communities and ways to connect. There's ways that you think about the way in which you want to connect with the alumni network that are relevant for the student network. So there is, I think, a lot of considerations, and I would just say thank you for the question, and we'll be sure to be more specific in the follow-up on ways you could connect.
Great, thanks, President Teller. So turning a bit to campus life and student life and experiences, our alumni love Laker athletics, so they're curious about how that may change in the fall with some of the social distancing and other requirements. Any updates that you might be able to provide in that area?
Okay, Greg, would you like to start?
Sure. Thank you, President Mantella. We're still awaiting some decision-making by the NCAA and also the GLIAC with regards to athletic contests moving forward in the fall. We're pretty much in what we call a quiet period now through the end of May. And then we expect more guidance from them moving forward. That could range from everything from canceled seasons to reduced numbers of contests to potentially competitions without fans. A lot of uncertainty there, just waiting to get that guidance, and we'll be sure to follow the guidance, both the NCAA and our conference.
There's one question I see in the Q&A on, since some institutions have released plans to cut sports, I would tell you that we are not contemplating any plans to cut our sports programs. We do expect the athletics area will, as every area in the university, will be expected to participate in some cost containment measures. Many of that will probably come pretty naturally out of how game operations will change or travel will change. So there will be a participation of every department of the university in cost containment, but we are not planning to stop any of our sports programs in their entirety.
Thanks, President Mantella. So Greg, one of our alumni, is joining us from Poland and is really curious about how the university will be handling international students and study abroad. We've already announced that we are postponing study abroad for the fall. Can you provide more information on what we think will happen with international students as we move forward with this next academic year, and when study abroad programs might resume, or other globalization activities that we might promote for our students on campus?
So let's take the two questions separately. So for our international students coming to study with us, I think we're going to see some real limitations in the fall. I would expect that immigration guidelines, what's allowable. We do have some fully online degrees that could be offered for an international student to begin their journey at Grand Valley. Some may be interested in doing so and being able to come face to face if and when immigration guidelines change. But we're anticipating that to be a narrow window, at least in the immediate term. In terms of study abroad, we have an active conversation with our faculty, our staff, our provost, around ways that we can modify going forward. We would imagine that some areas will be open, others will not. But how do we use the opportunity? One of the things we've learned in this moment is that our education can reach across the globe, right? The digital education can reach across the globe. So we no longer are confined to a model where people go and study elsewhere and they have no Grand Valley component to that education. So we're looking at ways to blend what we offer and what a particular site may offer, and ways that those modifications that we're considering, these are not decisions, and I want to be clear on that, can be ways that we actually advance our global education. So that's exciting, because we're blending the opportunities to be at a place with the opportunities to be more deeply connected to the home campus. Suzanne, is there anything you'd like to add to those comments?
Actually, yes, thank you. For those of you who might be worried about the students who were studying here and then went home when all of this started, and it's like, what do they do now? I'd like to say our faculty have been so fantastic about being as accommodating as they possibly could. I'm involved in some of those conversations as we've helped students to both finish out last semester, because sometimes they did have difficulties with or whatever. But then also for being able to continue and move forward for spring and summer, we have various kinds of accommodations as needed. I work with the Padnos International Center to help in terms of conversations with students about, well, I'm about to graduate and this is a capstone and what am I going to do? And we are being very flexible to help those students so that they're not just stuck until they're able to come back. We are taking the, that it's a global environment now. We can do these things. And I'm always saying in the conversations I'm in that, flexibility is our key word right now. And the faculty have just, I can't say it enough times, they've been so accommodating. So we are doing what we need to do to make sure the student still gets the education we had promised them, but to make allowances and exceptions and changes as needed in order to help that student meet their goal and finish up in the time frame that they were planning to. Never mind COVID-19, we are moving ahead and helping them. So anyway.
Thank you. I do want to underscore, in some ways, Grand Valley is such a wonderful culture, and it's like a tapestry full of heroes, and it truly is, yourselves included. Our faculty have been amazing in all of this conversion, and they have really worked in keeping the relationships with students individually and being able to make referrals and to our different student support areas. We have areas like financial services has just done incredible work, the financial aid area, to respond to the number of student hardship requests. So I just want to, again, take the moment to recognize, I could go around this video Zoom and recognize everyone because there have been so many people who have put among the considerations when their own health is one of those considerations, Grand Valley first. And so thank you to all of you.
Thank you. Some questions on experiential learning, President Mantella, particularly as it relates to degree requirements. How will Grand Valley handle things like clinicals and co-ops and things that require close distancing traditionally? And what opportunities are we looking to be able to expand in some of those offerings?
So before Suzanne, I can see Suzanne put herself off mute. She knows that question's coming her way. But before I give her the microphone, I would like to tell you directly, this is where we need you, alumni. We need you to help us keep our internships, our co-ops, our experiences rich and vibrant during this period. And we know that's difficult. We know many of you are in businesses that are struggling, but put Grand Valley first for us. We need to do this in order to keep our education as vibrant as it's always been. It's very critically important to us, and we can support many of these activities virtually. We're taking our own student employment program. We're looking at how we can increase the level of engagement, increase the relationship between the employment and the studies, and putting those in the hands of students as additional experiences. So I do want to underscore that this is an area we really need your help. Suzanne?
Sure. We don't have all the yet. We do have a great task force together with a few of the academic deans and various other parties involved trying to figure this out, because it isn't one answer for all situations. The different types of experiential learning programs that we have and opportunities that we offer, they're very different in what they need. I know the plan for the clinicals and so health sciences, we're going to make the very most of when things open up, making sure that the students get as much contact time as they possibly can. We realize that our opportunities to do that are in part contingent upon, the other party involved, that healthcare provider who's letting our student come in. So we have constraints there. We'll have to do things in smaller groups. The plan was some of the things such as engineering, maybe art studios, those kinds of things where it's a hands-on, you need to do something. It will be with social distancing. We will be wearing masks. We will be arranging so that maybe it's a staggered opportunities to be in those labs and doing those things. So there's not very many people in there at a time and they're practicing social distancing as possible. For the first time in my life, I've been looking at blueprints of classrooms and everything else with the drawings on there to see how many people can you safely put in there. And so lots of those conversations going on, smart people engaged in the discussions, but it answer for every situation. And so, and this is something it's very fluid as the rules, keep being adjusted a little bit on us. But we do intend to have this where they can do those experiential opportunities. It'll maybe look a little different than it did in the past, but it will have the same impact. We're very committed to that, and I'm confident that we'll be able to do that.
Troy, would you like to add anything?
I would. I also want to echo what Suzanne's mentioned about the virtual. And, we were virtual 3 days after Grand Valley kind of sent us to work out of our homes. And we've been doing internship trainings for years. And last week we had our first ever virtual internship training session. And we had over 40 employers sign on and go through, and the feedback has been outstanding. A lot of them did not know that we could teach the tools, and then we have some of the tools to do a virtual experience. In addition to the full-fledged internship, though, we're also looking at things called micro internships or projects, where they might not be an entire semester. They might be a 40-hour project. And so we strongly encourage you, please reach out to the Career Center. If we can assist you virtually, we're going to be posting on our website in the next couple of days several more virtual internship or project training sessions. So more to come, and thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. And so I also want to there's some additional questions I want to welcome and also thank for this question, Noreen Myers, who's former trustee and chair of our board of trustees and also a GV Foundation trustee, who's curious about the support and work that we're doing with our adjunct and affiliate faculty, and in particular, how we're engaging them with training and communication and as we move on to this virtual remote online learning platforms.
I visited the training, Noreen, when we went remote. We went remote over 4 days, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And I think we had over 500 faculty that were in that training. They were all open to adjuncts. We had many participate in the training, whether adjunct or affiliate or tenure track. So everything that Suzanne really spoke of as our training routine, as well as the space, the digital platform space that's available for self-guided training, is fully available to our adjunct community.
Great. So some of our alumni are asking follow-up questions around if you can provide any more elaboration on the university's 6-week ramp-up plan that you mentioned, and in particular, some of the safety precautions that we're taking into consideration that we have in place to ensure our sanitation and cleanliness and the health of our community as they re-engage and repopulate our campus for the fall.
So let me just say that what we have happening here as we get, first of all, we have an IMT structure, an incident management team structure that has been meeting on a daily basis and is very interconnected with public health, our public health community. We also, every one of us on this call have been meeting with our counterparts at least on a weekly basis to kind of get the best thinking. The best of higher education is when there's sharing and support of one another. And I think that everybody, as we face this crisis, is talking about what can we do to keep our communities safe and to have the best possible learning environment. As you've probably seen in the popular media, about 70% of the colleges and universities are saying they're going to open up in the fall for some level of face-to-face. In addition to those protocols, which are all received at the senior team of the administration, there are teams working. And those teams are working on the various threads. So the deans and the provost council are all working on how learning is happening, whether or not we'll reduce density through smaller section or taking one of a 3-day Monday, Wednesday, Friday to a digital forum so we can take size down to 2/3. Greg has teams that are working on, and I'm going to turn to Greg because it's an area we haven't talked about yet, the sort of well-being, the safety, the facilities, the cleaning, the air systems and handling. We have, Chick is leading a conversation on how we can modify the schedule to use more of the week than typically is used in an academic schedule where students like the Tuesday, Thursday, Wednesday from 10 to 3 kind of time period is always optimum? How do we do better at using the full schedule? So all of these are threads of activity. We have our Chief Human Resource Officer who's leading, you know, what as employees what is management's messages that will reassure, both in the conditions that they'll come back to, will reduce density, but put us in a position to support. So basically, the long answer is those 6 threads of work have to be well integrated so that we have a safe community, we've mitigated risk, we have a student experience that is strong and consistent. And so all of that planning is being done. What I've said to our community is I will release weekly videos to keep updating them on that step up. And we will give everyone at minimum a week's notice of their return date. And we hope to be able to do, again, much more than that, because we'll have some framework we can release. We'll start that conversation at the end of this week with some broad guidelines and a couple other things I would say. All of that will go back on our coronavirus website so that people will be able to see the phases of the step-up plan. So I can give you approach, but I can't give you a great deal on how it's all going to come together yet, because these are all threads in works. But I think one of the really important parts that we haven't touched on is the area that Greg leads, which is how do you keep our environment safe, Greg? And if you can talk about PPE and social distancing and some of the things that you're working on.
Sure thing. Thank you, President Mantella. There's a number of ways that we can keep the community, the campus community, both safe and clean. First off is PPE. We'll be providing masks and appropriate PPE to people on campus. We're looking at what we're calling enhanced healthy cleaning custodial services. Traditionally, we've done most of our cleaning in the evenings when nobody is around. We're going to shift that to do pretty much continuous cleaning throughout the day, with emphasis on increased frequency on the flat surfaces in the common areas in the classrooms. So we'll be doing that. In addition, we're looking at what we're calling engineering controls. Those are physical barriers, plexiglass barriers at service windows and things like that to keep people safe and create that social distancing while still providing the service, that face-to-face service that might be necessary at times. We're looking at a number of, within the human resources realm, going to more shifts, to decrease that density in any particular office at any one time. Some shift work, continuing to do work at home when appropriate, to again still provide the service, but yet provide the appropriate social distancing. And then lastly, an area that's kind of invisible to many people, but Grand Valley is in a great spot because we're a new university, very new buildings, and we have advanced HVAC systems in those buildings. And following some guidance from the American Society of Heating, Refrigeration, and Air Conditioning Engineers, we can use these systems to our advantage to reduce the potential for pathogen transmission control. We can optimize airflow patterns. We can use directional airflow, different kinds of zone pressurization. We can flush the buildings with fresh air overnight, a 4-hour flush with the air systems through the evening, and using increased ventilation, longer run times of outside air based on what the temperature and relative humidity. We can provide a very safe environment for those people in our buildings.
We have a couple of questions. Demario, Kristen are asking about how alumni can stay engaged during this time. In particular, how can they stay engaged with each other? How are their chapters going to stay engaged, whether virtually or in person? And how can they stay engaged with service opportunities? A couple of them participate in the networks of support, have participated in Move-In. What's in the future for alumni?
Chris, why don't you answer that, and anything else you'd like to say before we get close to closing here?
Okay, first of all, I wanted to jump on the bandwagon of the IT support. Without them, again, we would not be doing any of the things that we've been able to do during the 60 plus days that we've been at home. And so I'm glad you mentioned that. I just wanted to give my own personal shout out because it's been outstanding. No glitches in 60 plus days, and that's amazing for the quick turnaround that we had there. In terms of programming moving forward, obviously we would love to be with our people, our alums. It's really tough when you're in the event business to not be engaged face-to-face with people. But the one thing that we want you to know is that our phone number still works, our email still works. So please, if you have anything that you need from us, give us a call, give us an email. In fact, one of the things I'd like to do, so I don't forget, is that I want you guys to check in that are watching today. Send us where you're at, where you're from, and just let us know how you're doing. And if you don't tell the folks that were involved in the previous town hall meeting from last Tuesday, I'm going to do a random draw of 5 or 6 people to get some t-shirts that I have down in the bottom of the alumni house. And we'll send those out when we get back to the house. So, but you can't tell those folks that were involved last Tuesday because I'll get in a lot of trouble. So in terms of programming moving forward, you know, right now we're working on plans A, B, and C. Ultimately, our goal is that we will be in person for our events, but we know that we also have to be prepared for those events that we can't hold in person. So right now we're looking, we're leaning on other schools, and I'm talking to colleagues around the state and learning about new opportunities. Our staff is meeting actually next week to look at different opportunities that we can provide. Currently, we have a number of online programming opportunities. If you go to gvsu.edu/alumni/virtual, we have some alumni produced how-to videos that alums have been providing to us. We also have entertainment videos that have been produced by alumni. We have faculty and staff video presentations highlighting an area of their expertise. We also have access to campus-wide webinars and podcasts. And there are also links for at-home activities for yourself and for your children. If you want your children to learn how to draw Louis the Laker, we've got a video for that from one of our alums who's an art teacher up in Rockford. So please visit that site. We're going to continue to ramp that up as we move along. We're also looking at launching an alumni-owned business website so that we can know alumni businesses that are out there that are hurting right now. And so we'll have a link on there where you'll be able to see where alumni businesses are located. And then when it's time that we're all able to go out and support, you'll be able to see who's a Laker and go in. And when you visit them, tell them you're a Laker too. It's going to make that bond much stronger. So those are things to look for coming up from us. And again, just because we're not in person at the Alumni House, that doesn't mean you can't contact us. 616-331-3590. Rhonda's going to be on the phone just like she is when she's in the office. You'll get a call, or if you send us an email, please do. We'd love to hear from you.
Great. President Mantilla, so one final question and then any final remarks that you have. Some of our alumni are curious about the support that Grand Valley is offering to alum, particularly thinking about our most recent alum who have just graduated, entering a really rocky economy and tough job market. What support might we be offering for career coaching or advice as they enter this really tough situation?
So Jesse, I'm going to hold on that because I really want to make that my closing comments. But before I do, so I'll come back to that question. I'd like to ask Michelle Rhodes to speak a few moments about the kind of hardships that we're managing here on campus, the extent to which we're supporting our students, and then I'll come back to that question. So Michelle?
Yeah, thank you, President Mantella. And, you know, ever since the whole COVID-19 started, we've had a lot of support from university leadership around decisions focused on students and their success. So we've been really, really focused on meeting the individual needs of students. So many of you might know we received quite a large sum of money from the federal government through the CARES funding, and we've been working diligently to get that awarded to students. And we took the approach here to really want to hear from them and hear how it impacted them in those hardship requests. So, you know, once again, with Karen Loth and her team raising some funds and supporting our students whose study abroad trips were canceled, some of our international students who needed to stay a little bit longer. So we really have been taking an individual approach to supporting our students and wanting to make sure they're taken care of. So that continues now, and it continues through the summer. And then once again, knowing that they might face hardships to continue to remain a student at Grand Valley. And we are committed to making sure that anyone who contacts our office and financial and scholarships, we walk through the process with them individually, really pay attention if there's things we can do, getting more federal funds, and then of course, supplementing with any institutional funds that we can. Our main goal is to make sure that they stay students here. We know financial barriers can get in the way, and we are ready to answer anything or work with students. So any student that you have in contact with, please just make sure they contact us, because we really do want to make sure that they can continue here at Grand Valley.
Great, thank you very much. And although we did receive $9.1 million to distribute to students in hardship, Michelle has pretty much distributed those funds to over 6,000 students who have circumstances that need to be addressed, and have over 1,000 students still to respond to. So I want to do two things with my closing. One, to ask, one of the adages in advancement work is time, treasure, and talent. And if you have any of those three, and I know you do, we would love if you would consider Grand Valley as a part of your time, whether that's volunteer networks and the things that you've talked about on this. If you have the capacity to help some of these students in terms of the resources that the university needs on their behalf, we would welcome that as well. And I know some of you have specific talents in the areas of greatest need here, like the digital question that we received. So we welcome all of the support that you can possibly give. I also want to turn to the support we need to be giving you and remind you that one of my inauguration commitments was a Laker Lifetime Learning Commitment. And Troy Farley and Michelle Rhodes have been co-leading the team to extend what we've always done well, career support and financial support while students are in college, to those to our Laker community after they leave us. Because we know learning is going to be a lifetime journey. So there is right now $1,000 on account for any Laker alums who completed their degree here and wants to come back to pursue either the next degree, something that helps them get in the job market, a certificate or badge that's supporting them. And that can help you with your additional costs, and those programs remain open. We're also working extremely hard on the career network and career coaching. I am amazed at what the career services team has been able to accomplish, both in terms of continuing our employer work, our employer development, to be sure Lakers have an advantage where there is jobs, as well as supporting you in the kind of career coaching or getting your resume ready, or raising those and answering those questions about what do I critically need to step into a new role if you've been disrupted by COVID. So want you to know that those services are here for you. Don't hesitate to pick up the phone and contact us. So we're really looking to make that L3 commitment to you, to have Lakers keep helping Lakers. And I just thank you for being with us. And I thank you, like Lakers always. Your questions were all about students, and few of them were about you, but we're here to support you as well. Thank you so much. Hail to thee, Grand Valley.